Before all of that, though, Labour leader Keir Starmer joins me now. Lovely to see you. Thank you for joining us this morning.
Good morning. Nice to see you. What a shame it's like this.
I was going to say it's a wee bit dark. It's a little bit dark.
Is there anything we can...
It's fine, we'll be all right.
Yeah, I don't know whether we can lighten it at our end or your end, but what a shame we're doing it remotely.
I know, but one day, fingers crossed, fingers crossed. I want to talk to you about loads of things, but obviously two main things that you're throwing your weight behind today, which is universal credit and free school meals. Now, both debated in the House today. The government have called it a stunt, but actually they do want to scrap the £20 extra payment on universal credit, don't they?
Yeah, I mean, this £20 uplift has been there during the pandemic for families that absolutely need it. And £20, the uplift that we're talking about, works out to about £1,000 a year. That's the difference between being able to pay the gas, electricity and internet bill combined. And after this, we're going off to a food distribution centre in South London. I've read some of the testimonies of the people that are going to the food centre. And these are people who were working just a few months ago. They're now desperate. So I think for the Prime Minister to call it, if he's going to call it a stunt, he should probably come with me to the food distribution centre to see these families this morning and explain to them why he thinks that this, what's a lifeline for them, is a stunt, because it certainly isn't from their point of view.
It's interesting, though, that Tory MPs have actually been told that they can abstain. That's interesting, isn't it?
Well, here's the truth, isn't it? I actually think in their heart of hearts, quite a lot of Tory MPs know that cutting this money to people who desperately need it in the middle of a pandemic is the wrong thing to do. They know that. They probably want to vote with us, but because of the tribal way we do politics, they can't. So the Prime Minister, and this is the thing really, isn't it? The Prime Minister's now saying, in answer to the question, do you think this uplift should stay or not? He's saying, I don't want to say yes, and I don't want to say no. So we're going to say you've got no view on whether it should stay in place or not. I think that's pretty pathetic. And I actually think a lot of Tory MPs are worried about this. They know, as a constituency MPs, they all do a surgery. You know, whichever party you're in, you do a surgery. They know that these families desperately need this money. And I think in their heart of hearts, they would actually vote with us today if they had the option to do so. And
it's interesting as well, though, isn't it, about free school meals? Because you had something like, Marcus Rashford, famously, a footballer, a young man, has campaigned for this. It even came up last night on Dancing on Ice. Rufus Hound referenced it. So
I saw that, yeah.
Yeah, it's interesting. I mean, but these, for you, they're kind of easy targets, because surely only the most cold-hearted would not want to make sure that really needy kids that absolutely need help should get this. I mean, it's a no-brainer in many sense, isn't it?
And what happened last week was really interesting, wasn't it? Because those images started to circulate of what was in the packages for free school meals, and they're terrible, and they're not enough. I mean, you know, we've got two kids. We've got a boy who's 12 and a girl who's 10, and they go through that in a dose of salts. But also the fact that, you know, they're being ripped off. This isn't the value of the meal that they were promised. And I think that's why, during the course of last week, most people looked at that package and thought, this is just completely wrong. The government's on the wrong side of this. Good on Marcus Rashford for I mean, fantastic footballer, although I'm an Arsenal fan. But, you know, really good that he's fronting this up. And I think that the more we can show that joined up campaigning on this, the better. We've got to do better than this as a nation. I mean, frankly, I'd like to get to a position where we're not talking about free school meals, because we don't have a problem of poverty in the way that we do in 21st Britain at the moment. But in the middle of this pandemic, for heaven's sake, do better than that, that meal that was on offer last week.
Talking about doing better, though, you are ahead in the polls, but, you know, many people would say you should be doing better, and you had an opportunity to be better, because right now, you know, we're going to be talking to Hilary about vaccinations. Scientists have found a vaccine, the army are rolling it out, and the government will then bask in the glory of that. So do you feel as if maybe you should have done more? Maybe you should have done more about the fact that we were allowing people into this country, and it's only today that we have shut down those corridors. Should you not have been shouting about that ages ago?
Yeah, I mean, look, I'll be honest with you, this is a difficult balance to get right, because I think in the middle of a pandemic, I don't think the public just want to see politicians fighting because they can. They want to know from us as an opposition, where are you going to support the government then? Because, you know, every family is vested in this. No, this has been 2020 was an awful year, and 2021 is only a few days old, and it's not looking much better. And people want to know, where did you support when it was necessary to? But where did you challenge? And we challenged on the government being too slow, being incompetent, always being behind the curve. We had to get that judgment right all the way through. But on the vaccine, we're 100% supportive. This is a national effort. It's the light at the end of the tunnel. And I went to the Stevenage Mass Vaccination Centre last week, and it was incredible to see the NHS, the Red Cross, lots and lots of volunteers doing an absolutely brilliant job getting people through. And I've never seen so many people with a smile on their face as I saw last Thursday. I actually realised, from my own point, I realised I had not seen human beings in one room smiling like that as a group, probably since February of last. It actually brought home to me how much I'd missed human beings smiling. And so, you know, what we say to the government on that is, we're absolutely behind you. We will support the national effort. We think there should be 24/7 vaccination centres, and we think that, you know, use your pharmacists up and down the country much quicker. So we want to push the government on. But, you know, back to your question, really, are we supportive of the national effort? You bet we are. And my father-in-law's 91, and he's just has his vaccine. And the anxiety draining out of people when they have the vaccine is a very human emotion. It's the way out of this, and we all need to get behind it.
No, we absolutely do. I'm interested because you are a sir, but you don't really like people referring to you by your title. Why is that?
Well, I've been called Keir all my life, and it's worked really well. I've been called a lot worse than Keir, by the way, many, many times. But Keir works really well, and I don't use the sir. I don't feel any need for it. When I was Director of Public Prosecutions, people used to call me Director, and I didn't like that either. So it's just, I like being called Keir. It's simple, it's straightforward. It's worked all my life, and that's the basis on which I go forward. I mean, having said that getting a knighthood was one of the proudest things for my mum and dad, that they came to Buckingham Palace, and it was an incredible, incredible day for them. And just to seeing the pride in them was worth every minute of it.
Your mum was a very interesting woman, and again, I think, I mean, first of all, they called you Keir. I mean, you lived in East Surrey, and you were named after the Labour Party founder. That must have been quite interesting growing up. But your mum was an incredible woman, and again, I think your passion for the NHS certainly comes from the fact that you saw firsthand what it did for her. It saved her life.
Yeah, well, certainly I can't take any credit for being called Keir. That was a decision taken before I had any say-so over that. But my mum was an absolutely incredible woman. She had a very rare disease called Still's disease, which she got when she was 11. It's where your immune system sort of attacks itself. When she was a teenager, they discovered steroids as a medicine, and she was one of the first, and actually the longest steroids patient in the country for many, many years. But the Still's disease and ultimately the steroids had a devastating effect on her, and she was very, very ill for a lot of her life. And, you know, she was told she wouldn't be able to walk or have children. She beat that, but in the end, it all caught up with her. And as children and as adults, we spent a lot of time in high dependency units with my mum, who, you know, sadly ended up unable to walk, unable to feed herself, unable to speak, and actually had to have her leg amputated. And one of the saddest things for me is that our children have never actually spoken to my mum. She died a number of years ago, but before she died, she couldn't speak to them. But she was incredible because, you know, you could see a lot of the time the pain that she was in. You know, if you're in a high dependency unit, you know what's going on, even as a teenager in there, as I was. But the stock response from my mum, every time you said, "How are you?" she'd always hold your hand and say, "I'm all right. How are you?" And this incredible ability never to sort of grumble. Even, as I say, in a high dependency unit, about to go in for yet another operation, it would be, "I'm all right. How are you?" And that, with a smile on her face, and that was incredible. But she was NHS through and through and through. She worked as a nurse before she had to stop working as a nurse because she was too ill, and so the NHS was her livelihood. But then, sadly, for many years, it was her lifeline as well.
So interesting to talk to you, because you know sometimes when you do interviews with politicians it's like gladiatorial and point scoring, and I can't really be bothered with that. And it's just really interesting to talk to you like a normal person, because what we need right now is we need to restore trust, don't we? We need to restore trust, and we need to unite, and we need to beat this thing, and then we can go back to all the knockabout stuff.
We need to restore trust, we need to unite, and also we need to do a bit more than that, because I think having gone through this together, there's, as a nation, and it's not very often things like this happen, it's certainly not happened in my life, where everybody is basically fighting the virus together. And there's a very human need, I think, to go back to normality. People want to hug their loved ones, they want to hug their friends. It's like me in the vaccine centre last week, realising how much I'd missed human beings smiling in a room together. So people want to go back to normality. But after what we've been through, we can't go back to business as usual, because if this pandemic has done one thing, it's absolutely brutally exposed the inequalities in our society. And I think we owe it to the country to build a better Britain coming out of this, and a united one. And you know, one of the reasons I'm very excited about what's happening in America is I've seen for the first time in a number of years sort of hope triumphing over hatred, and I think we all need to get behind that. In the end, you know, Joe Cox said this, and Joe came into Parliament at the same time as me. You know, there is more that unites us than divides us, and that is the reason that phrase has stuck, is because it's so powerful.
It is. It's a very, very powerful thing, and she's very sadly missed. Thank you for talking to us this morning. I extend an invitation to Boris Johnson to do exactly the same thing tomorrow if he wants, and we can sit and talk to him like a person. Thank you very much, Keir Starmer.
I'll mention that to him.
It's very good to talk to you. Thank you so much. Don't forget, you can watch full episodes of Lorraine on the ITV Hub, and all the best clips, compilations and playlists right here on our channel. Just subscribe now and you'll never miss an upload. Click here to watch another video similar to this one, or click here to head to our channel's homepage to explore all of our exciting videos.